and welcome to the Radical Fabulatorium. I'm your host, John Adam Ian. Okay, on today's episode, I sit down with Nameless Friends, rock group from London, Ontario, Canada. Now, this actually aired as a special Saturday afternoon live edition of the Radical Fabulatorium. Nameless Friends were in St. John, New Brunswick, here to play a show at the Haven Music Hall. So you may hear some references to a show happening tonight throughout this conversation, which of course, since you're listening in the future, the show is not happening tonight, whatever tonight is to you right now. So yeah, they're a cool rock band from London, Ontario with their debut LP out, their debut full-length called Blasphemy. All right, here we go. My chat with number 1, number 3, number 5, and number 7 of the Nameless Friends as they tour Canada, first time out on the East Coast. You can check out all my previous interviews at theradfab.com. And if you feel like supporting the show, patreon.com/theradfab. Enjoy. All right, welcome back to the special Saturday afternoon edition of the Radical Fabulatorium here on local FM 107.3 in St. John. I have been now joined by the Nameless Friends, number 1, number 3,
Yay.
number 5,
Howdy.
and number 7.
Hiya.
How's it going?
Not bad. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for coming in on, thanks for stopping by the radio station before the show tonight at Haven.
Oh, thanks for having us in.
Yeah, no problem. So just before we went live, you were kind of talking about the harrowing journey from PEI to St. John.
You make it sound more heroic than it was.
I think it was plenty heroic. I was the one who was driving. Thank you very much.
Yes, okay.
No, we just played in Charlottetown last night at Baba's Lounge. It was wicked. It was awesome.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And we're staying right now in an Airbnb in Moncton in the middle to kind of tootle around all of our shows.
Okay.
So it was a couple hours. The show ended at 2. And then we got out at 3, and then we were driving home in the pouring rain, and the high beams did not help. And we got home at 6, and we went to bed, and now we are here.
So everyone's exhausted except for number 5?
Oh, I'm having a blast.
You're having a blast. Yeah.
Time has no meaning.
Slept the whole time.
So you've been on the road for about a week, you were saying, right?
Yeah.
So how's the journey been?
It's been awesome.
Have you been on the road
Honestly.
before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a first tour of the East Coast this time.
Okay, welcome.
And thank you. And not that it's a competition, but we're having more fun, I think, than we went out to the prairies in the fall. And
It's definitely a competition.
Oh yeah, no.
it's been awesome.
This is a vastly superior experience.
Okay.
I'm from the prairies, so
You take the heat for that.
this
You're
is
from there.
this is a lot better.
Are you from which part of the prairie? Like Saskatchewan?
Saskatchewan.
Okay, cool. So why do you say that though? What's making it more fun or interesting? Or?
Part of it's been logistical. Just the distances are so much shorter. So we've actually, had time to get out of the van and explore and visit places. We've had time to rest a little bit, which has been lovely. But also just, oh my God, everyone has been so welcoming. I mean, we're from Ontario, which is the worst part of the music scene. Apologies. It's awful. We know it. And to get out here and actually find that venues thank us for playing.
Yeah.
New experience, man.
Really?
Bands are happy to play with us. New experience. Like the Ontario music industry can be really competitive and everybody's doing their best out there, but it's a more aggressive time. So
Okay.
to come out here and get to slow down a little bit, the scenery is beautiful. Everyone's happy to see us.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Cool. I'm glad you get those feelings because sometimes the East Coast people think of Eastern Canada stopping at Quebec City. So a lot of time we get forgotten about out here. So it's nice when bands come through.
No, we're delighted to be here. It's such a heavy music scene, which is awesome for us because, we play heavy music.
Yeah.
So our team suggested it because they're close with a couple of punk bands that have done the circuit and had a blast. And
Okay.
we are too. So
Cool. Yeah, we try, and Haven's a relatively new venue.
Yeah.
And so everyone in the city's pretty stoked on that. So
Awesome.
they've been getting a pretty steady stream of not just heavy acts, but all kinds of cool.
Yeah, no,
musicians
we're
coming through.
stoked to be here, especially on a Saturday. So.
Yeah, Saturday. So you guys will be performing cuts off of Blasphemy, or
Yes.
that's kind of why you're on the road, right?
That
For
is it.
Blasphemy?
Yeah, the new album.
Yeah. Anyone want to jump in on that? What are you stoked about?
Why don't we go? We'll go through the numbers. Go in order.
Sure.
I can start.
Yeah.
Stoked about the reactions from crowds have been unreal. It's been so awesome. I mean, this album is a protest album. Like we wrote it about the things that we're angry about, and it's been just so sick to see, especially like young women and young queers and just people from our communities feeling really seen and having a dope time in the pit. It's been awesome for me. Cool. It's healed something.
It's healed something. Okay. You've gotten that vibe from the crowd. It's helping you heal.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, let's go in order.
No, I'm just having a good time.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Just enjoying the ride.
Just enjoying the ride.
Yeah.
The driver, the tech guy.
Yeah.
The driver tech guy? Okay. Do you play in the band?
Yes.
Okay. Number 3 would be, let me guess. Wait. Number 3, 2 used to be bass, but
yeah.
3 is probably drums.
No.
Rhythm guitar?
I mean, I got the frame for it.
Yeah. So, for all the listeners, for a roundup, I'm number 1. I'm lead vocals and rhythm guitar. Hello. Number 2 is our part-time bass player. She slums it out on bass when we can't afford to pay her for live sound. So please come to our shows so we can afford to pay her to do our live sound.
Okay.
Number 3 is our lead guitar.
Okay.
Number 5 is our bass, full-time bass.
That's me.
Full-time bass.
Yeah. Number 4, who I glossed over, is retired. He was our first drummer. We love him. He's got a family now.
Okay.
He pops up for Easter eggs in our videos occasionally.
Yep.
Number 6 is our keyboard. He is asleep in the van, having the best time at this moment. And number
Resting.
7 is drums.
So what about 5 and 7? Who wants to talk about their experience?
If we're going in order, it's my turn. Number 5. Very similar. You know, I love performing. The studio is not really my space.
Okay.
They're very good at it. Everybody else loves that. Yeah. I just like getting in front of people. There's a couple, and I know we're doing the Blasphemy tour, but we have one cover in our set list. And every time the pit goes hard for that one.
Okay.
And that's,
Yes.
while the originals are always amazing, that's always a highlight when people like feel that energy. Awesome.
100%.
Do we want to say what the cover is, or is it kind of a surprise?
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
No spoilers? Okay.
No.
It's an exciting
Come to
moment.
the show.
Come to the show. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's see, number 7. Any thoughts?
I'm here for that sort of burnt bacon smell that the van gets after a couple weeks of driving.
No. What?
I mean, I know you're. I used
That's
to.
where I'm at.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I used to be in a touring band. I know what you're talking about.
I'm putting that on the tour course.
Maybe throw some peanut butter smells in there too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something to really that sort of, kaleidoscope of scents that can only really be acquired by a group of 6 people traveling in a tin can for thousands of kilometers can really get.
So what size of van is it?
Oh,
It's actually not bad.
Yeah, I think we have like a 12-passenger van right now. Yeah, we've
That's
got
not
like
too bad.
what is it? A Ford Transit something?
Ford Transit 350 XLT.
Build it up, John.
How many miles to the gallon you get in that hog?
Not as good as the Chevy Express we rented last time.
No.
Okay, not as good. Okay,
This one has expensive taste.
expensive. It's like a thirsty
It's
beast.
Thirsty
Oh,
boy.
yeah.
Yeah, we get 80-liter tank. We get like 4 or 5 hours of highway driving on it. The Chevy Express got like 8 hours on an 80-liter tank.
Okay.
So
I
else
miss it.
has just become a discussion of our various tours. That was the thing the Prairies won at. Better van.
Better van.
Prairies.
That's the one thing
Better
the Prairies
van.
had. But everything else,
I miss
Everything
Bumbo.
else on the East Coast has been great.
Maritimes win so far.
win so
on
far.
all that's important. Well, money's important. You got to make
It's also
ends meet.
prettier.
Right? It's prettier. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. It is pretty nice out here.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the record a little bit. So the newest record, Blasphemy, right? Released May 19th of 2023.
You got it.
So produced by you,
Produced
number
by
1.
me, yeah. And engineered largely by 3, yeah.
By 3, okay. 3 and number 1 a little bit?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And it was mixed by Andrew McLeod, right? From Sunsetter?
Yes. We love Andrew.
Yeah,
yes.
that record. So I checked out a record of his this morning. It was fantastic.
Oh my God, he's exquisite sense of space.
Yeah.
It was a dream to work with Andrew.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And mastered by the, is it right? She was the first female engineer to win a Grammy?
People keep telling us that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Darcy Proper, she is a legend. I mean, the Eagles' Porcupine Tree, like these massive artists that we can only aspire to.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in and just worked her magic. We're thrilled with what she did on the album. Yeah.
So what was what was the recording and mixing process like? So Sam, you recorded most of it, or sorry, you gave away your name. But
So I mainly did all of the engineering, so setting up mics on everything, doing all that, and tracking and editing. The editing is the chunkiest part of the work in post. But yeah, had a good time. I think I'm very happy with the work. Yeah, how it turned out.
Yeah. Producing it was really fun. Because for me personally, I'm doing some grad work. I'm doing my PhD in record production right now.
Okay.
So for those bands that want access to non-traditional grants, go to grad school and convince them to let you make your band's album as part of your research.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay.
So we did a lot of it at home in our home studio. So lots of time that Three and I got to spend together, me producing and him engineering.
Yep.
And then every comp on the records, choosing which take for which bits is something that I did personally.
You did personally.
So yeah, every vocal take, everything.
How do you make that decision?
Vocals for me is fairly easy because it was a personal decision. So sculpting my own performance it allows me to choose the ideal version I wanted. Though I was militant for the album, no tuning on the lead vocals.
No tuning, okay.
I just felt strongly about it that the live band right now, not to toot our horn, is so kick-ass, is so great. I didn't want the record to overshadow that, right? So it's untuned vocals as they were in the studio.
Okay.
And then for our bass, keys, and drum stuff, I engineered a lot of that with our session musicians, and with the other band members. So we went through, I went through with our drummer, and we chose the different takes that he wanted to use together, 4. Kind of thing. Yeah. 4 played a lot on this album before he retired.
Okay.
7's got some bits in need.
Okay.
And then 7 took over for all of the shows on this one.
Okay, that's interesting because I would have guessed listening to the record that it's live. Like a live off the floor record.
Good.
Especially when I listen back to compare it to Mezzanine, the EP.
Yes, which was very studio, was tuned, don't get me wrong. Yeah, we had a fabulous experience with Kyle Ashburn at the Sugar Shack in London, Ontario, our hometown. He did our first EP.
Cool.
Especially we were such a junior band at that point and so anxious. And Kyle was wonderful with just doing it by the book, making sure we got the full experience, making sure that EP stands the test of time. And so for this album, it was really exciting to go, no, this is ours. We know what we're doing. We're confident with it. If we don't want to tune, we don't have to tune. If we want to record things more raw, we can. When Andrew and I sat down to mix, we felt really strongly that we didn't want things to be overly compressed, overly colored. You know what I mean? So that's what's giving you that very raw sort of sound.
Yeah.
And then when I was consulting with Darcy about mastering, we didn't want it to hit that loudness war, overly squashy, kind of thing. So that's why you still get so much dynamic range and so many transients and everything else on the album. And it sounds a lot like the live set.
Yeah.
Abuse of limiters was involved.
Abuse of limiters?
Yeah,
going to tape, or what do you mean?
Going through the mastering conversion for sure. Yeah. It was, that's what it took to get it to sound that clean, but also to pump a little bit.
That's cool. That's interesting. I think it's a pretty job well done because, like I said, I thought it was live.
Amazing.
And a big part of it was the vocals. You could tell the vocals weren't totally crushed in the mix.
Yeah.
It felt like you were dancing around the mic a little bit, back and forth like this. And, Yeah, you were? Okay, perfect. It kind of reminded me of Riot Girl mixed with early 70s prog.
Oh, I'll take that.
That's kind of the blend I got.
Yeah, no, it was important to me as the producer that we just allow this to sound like the band sounds, We'll have an entire career to make super slick, big albums, and we're looking forward to it. We're writing new songs for our second LP right now.
Okay, cool.
But I wanted to show that out of the gate, prove we know how to play our instruments. You know what I mean? We know how to play. The songs are decent. Come to a live show kind of thing, and we'll do something more intense in the studio later on.
Yeah, gotcha. So number 5 and 7, the rhythm section. 7 was on the record a little bit.
Yeah.
5 wasn't really.
No, I think we had a studio musician for most of that. I came on board sort of as this touring cycle began for this album.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll ask you, just because you weren't on the record at all, what's the vibe you got from listening to the record and then becoming part of the band to perform the songs? Any thoughts?
Oh boy.
No pressure.
Did you feel pressure to honor the songs? Do you put your own twist on how you play it live versus the bass lines that would be on the record? How did you approach the?
I am a chronic improviser.
Okay.
So I don't play it the same night to night. I don't think I could if I tried. But they're great tunes, and there's a lot of like Need, for example, has really strong riffs that like messing with that is not something that I've had to do because it works so well most of the time.
Okay.
But there is enough space in sort of a good like classic rock setting to mess around. You know, I think there's a lot of bassists out there who are in very similar positions with very similar styles of music where there is a lot of freedom to mess around a little bit and fill out space and know where that belongs. So that was a lot of fun for me.
Okay.
Yeah, we feel strongly about the live set not being beholden to the record necessarily. Like the record is a canon version. It exists to be what it is, and we love that's the performance that people get to take home with them, right? But I also don't want our crowds who come to our live shows to feel like they're limited by what we put out. It's a multi-experience thing.
Okay.
That is the most pretentious thing I've ever said in an interview. Oh my God.
It's not. No, it's not pretentious. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Like you have the record experience and you have
yeah,
the live
we want
experience.
people to get like a little extra something when they come live. It's not just the album. If you want the album, play the album. It sounds really good, you know, but we like to improvise night to night. So,
yeah. Both approaches are valid in my opinion. And it's all, I mean, art is about being an honest expression, right?
Yeah.
So if that's what works for your band, then that's just how it is.
You make it sound so reasonable. Thank you.
It is reasonable. There's no rules here. People think there are rules, but there really aren't.
What else can we answer for you?
What else can you answer for me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about... so I didn't even tell the crowd what songs I played, the listeners. So we played 7 Years in Blood and Demons.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those two songs, because I know there's meanings behind both songs, right? Do you want to start with 7 Years?
Sure, yeah. 7 Years of Blood was the first single off of the album. It is about menstrual rights and abortion rights. And it was... don't know if your listeners can infer from my voice. I'm female. And the past few years watching, you know, especially in the US, the rollback like of reproductive rights and civil freedoms for female people and people with uteruses is just horrifying, right? So it was very important to me that 7 Years of Blood is about that experience of grappling with what it means. You know, there's a whole faction of people that for quote unquote religious reasons think that you shouldn't have the freedom to make your own medical decisions. That's just heinous. So the song is about that. But it doesn't have a single gendered pronoun because it was very important to me that people of all genders can have uteruses and can go through that experience and need to talk about menstrual rights. And the song is written accordingly.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the message of 7 Years of Blood. And I mean, the music video is fun. We covered ourselves in 6 gallons of fake blood, rolled around. I recommend it.
It got pretty messy?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mention the meme that the title is based on.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to know that.
Oh yeah. Okay, so there was this wicked. I think it was a Tumblr post.
Okay.
A few. This is
Tumblr,
my own lore that I'm forgetting here. And when we were writing the album, I came across this Tumblr post where someone calculated that the average menstruating person spends 7 years of their life on their period.
7 years. Okay.
7 years. And the top comment was something like, you know, oh my God, women are so metal. And so I turned around and said, okay, we have to write a song about that. It's so topical right now.
There is 7 years of blood.
7 Years of Blood.
That's it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me that because I was curious about the title.
Yeah.
It is pretty metal because there's iron involved in the blood.
I
Right?
was gonna say at some point we should like do the math to find out exactly how much iron,
Yeah.
like in like weight.
That's interesting.
Okay, that's a good, write that down. That's a good follow-up question.
Yeah, because there's that line in the song "Tread with respect, not legislation." So that pretty much sums it all up,
There
right?
you go.
I used to think sometimes, like as a man, like what life was like for women before menstrual products existed, and it's really hard to put myself. I mean, for one thing, I'm a man, so it can't really be done anyway. But it's really hard to imagine what life would have been like.
Oh yeah,
Like
it was
before
so
that.
restrictive. I mean, like I come from a family where the women were very close knit, and it was a safe space where we could talk about those things.
Okay.
And I remember my grandmother like leveling with me and my sister, how awful menstrual products were, and you had to like wear them with like belts under your clothing to try and keep them in place, just to try to go to school, just to, you know, do all these things that we take for granted now.
Wow.
And that's part of what makes me so angry about period product poverty and about this rollback of abortion rights is because I think we take for granted that it was just within a generation or two, just from me to my grandmother, when female bodies were kept from the world because of their cycles. Like my grandmother is talking about how sometimes if she was bloated and uncomfortable and didn't want to have to wear this whole apparatus to not bleed through her clothes, she's missing school. That's a problem, right? That's
For like a week at a time, potentially.
exactly. Right? That's a quarter of your life that you're out of education. How does that hold somebody back over time? You know, how does that impact you in the workforce? How does that impact you in just having a pleasurable, enjoyable life? And I think we take for granted, especially in North America, especially in the West right now, that there are a lot of young people who still experience that worldwide right now. You know, just because we have even in North America, one of the things we did around 7 Years of Blood is instead of selling merch, we asked our fans to donate to a menstrual product drive that we did for a local charity in our hometown of London, called Anova. They are fantastic. Donate to Anova. And we went with Anova because they're a regional center who would disseminate whatever menstrual products weren't needed in London across the rest of the country.
Okay.
Because that's a real thing that's happening in Canada right now. The cost of living is so high.
Wow.
You now have young girls having to make these, I think, inexcusable decisions again of should they go to school if they don't have access to pads or tampons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, period product poverty is something it's just hard for me to process.
Yeah.
What would it, can you estimate what it would cost per month for product?
For one person, I mean, going off of my own personal experience, it depends. If you're using something like a reusable menstrual cup, that can be as little as like $20 to $30 a month the first time, and then just continues to be reusable, so you don't have an existing cost for the life of that cup.
Oh, I've never even heard of a reusable option.
Yeah, so that can be up to, you know, few years kind of thing. Spread that cost like $30 out over a few years, which is great.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody who has a heavier flow and you're talking about like disposable pads or tampons, which no shade, that's what works best for some people.
Yeah.
A pack these days of a decent amount to get you through a week can easily be, let's say another kind of $20 to $30, depending on how many you need. If you need multiple different products for different types of your cycle, multiply that by how many different products you need.
Yeah.
And then you have to do that every single month. So depending on the flow, you could easily see it getting between $50 and $80 a month. That's a decent chunk of change.
For sure. I mean, that's a phone bill or the internet bill, or right?
Yep.
Yeah, which is something I've never ever thought of.
Yep.
As a man.
Yeah.
Something I do. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Of course,
that's really fascinating to me. Wow. Okay. How about Demons? Because that's also kind of a protest tune, right?
Yeah, Demons is about queer rights.
Queer rights, okay.
Because most of the band is queer, and you know, in varying stages of out or otherwise.
Okay.
And that similar thing. Sitting at home during the pandemic, watching legislation be wielded against people's freedoms just for no good reason. I mean, the record is called Blasphemy because my personal bent on it is that I see a lot of this restrictions of freedom and kind of right-wing encroach on freedoms coming from an evangelical Christian influence. So especially imported from the United States, that whole right-wing Republican sort of crazy nonsense. You know what I mean? And that's not to suggest that I'm hating on religion, not at all. I think that there are parts of organized religion and Christianity especially that are really beautiful and sacred and spiritual and about community and communion and all of these wonderful things. There are members of the band that are quite devout. The issue I take is suggesting that what works for you and your spirituality should apply to other people. And especially with queerness, we're seeing that a lot from like a culture war perspective right now. And that doesn't do it for me. That's not okay. You know, people should be allowed to decide who they are. People should be validated that they know who they are and who they love. And if that doesn't fit a prescribed understanding of gender or of love, that's okay, as long as it's not hurting anybody. Like it's just the diversity of the human experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But instead, I mean, I don't know if you folks listening have been watching the news. Like a non-binary teenager named Nex was just murdered by their classmates in Oklahoma like a few days ago.
Wow, brutal.
Yeah, and that's linked to a huge upswing in legislative violence against queer people in the state of Oklahoma right now.
Okay.
So as much as people like to, it's politics, and like politics and policy has a a real influence on what people conceive of as the issues. And all of this fear-mongering around queer people and their right to exist in Oklahoma led to the circumstances that a child was killed.
Yeah.
Like that to me is deeply disturbing. So Demons is trying to balance both that current horror, because it is a horror, this attack on queer rights, but also the freedom and the joy of being queer, of being that experience, because there's nothing wrong with being a member of the queer community. That's our community. It's wonderful. Yes, you combine a little bit of prog, try to hit all of those points. That's what that song's about.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard to imagine that someone would take it so far for physical violence just for some random opinion or feeling they have about some other person. Like, it's hard to see how you get that far.
Happens, right? And I think that's why, it's fine if people think we're over the top as artists and as a band. It's fine. Like, we are over the top. We lean into that. But we're intense about it because the stakes are real.
Stakes are real. Yeah. Well, someone lost their life. So
exactly.
That's real world consequences.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm doing a lot of talking. Do you guys have any more thoughts on
Any
this?
opinions?
I'm still trying to calculate how much iron is lost in like 7 years of menstrual blood. Like, I'm actually going down this rabbit hole. So, like, this is great.
Okay.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
I look over and their phone screen is like calculations of microliters.
We needed an imperial units and metric units, please.
This is a bad time to be really not great at math.
That's what chat for.
As someone who's like had a period, do you want me to do that later?
Well, I mean, I'm working on it. I'm getting somewhere. Anyways, we can give this is maybe inconsequential.
Oh, no, I find it interesting. I'm a math guy. Maybe we should play another tune.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me pull up the list here. Now, I would, if it was me, I would put on either Fourth or Need. But
either of those. Great.
you like either of those choices?
Fourth doesn't get much play.
Fourth doesn't get much
Let's do
play?
it.
I really like Fourth.
Oh,
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so here we are. I'll remind everyone that you're listening to a special Saturday edition of the Radical Fabulatorium on Local FM 107.3, St. John, New Brunswick. I'm hanging out with my new friends, Nameless Friends, and you're about to hear a track off of their latest record, Blasphemy, called Fourth.
Yeah, baby.
Enjoy.
Farewell, mother, I can't go back only home. Godspeed in a child, I'm sorry I'm taking so long. Take me home, take me home. I'm not made for this life, take me home. Take me home, take me home. I was made for the lights and the highs. Take me home. Take
That was Fourth by Nameless Friends off their album Blasphemy.
Yeah.
That is the cameraman's favorite tune.
Gibson's having an amazing time.
Gibson,
right
yeah.
now.
He's over my shoulder. And yeah. How'd that make you feel, Gibson?
Great.
He feels great. My microphone just fell off, so it's a bold decision on my part.
I like it just swinging.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of fun energy.
I kind of like it. Yeah. We're pretty punk rock here, as you may have figured out.
I like it.
So that's just how we're going to do it. I'm going to hold the microphone now. Okay, I was going to read a quote to you, number one.
Ooh.
And maybe I can get your opinion on what you meant by it.
Yeah.
So I have here that you said something about attempting to scale back definitions of production for analytical purposes historically result in academics attempting to hold recordings separate from their socio-political context
You found my
of
research.
of their making, divorcing the musical object from the circumstances of the musical act.
That is from my master's thesis, isn't it? That's where
It may be, yeah. I was
that's
curious
where
what.
you found it. Ooh, okay. So you're asking me about a very particular soapbox, and my supervisors back home are rolling their eyes, but that's okay because they're not here right now.
Rolling their eyes. Why?
My research is a little bit controversial, just because anything in academia that's at the frontier of the field and is new, rightfully so, is controversial, because the system is designed to vet new research and make sure it's right. What I was suggesting in that master's thesis, and I've gone further to double down on in the PhD thesis I'm working on right now, is basically that the way we study recordings right now in academia is a lot more like studying cultural objects than it is like studying music.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is a recording is a musical performance. It's just as much a musical performance as if you went to a show and listened to a singer singing for you on a stage right in front of you, right? Yep. It's just that there was a couple intermediary steps, like to put that performance down on a CD or a tape or streaming or whatever and get it to you, but it's still a performance. But the way that we've tended to talk about recordings in academia historically, we haven't talked about them with the same tools and with the same frameworks as musical performances, because we have an entire field that knows how to talk about musical performances. Instead, when we talk about recordings, we tend to use the same tools and frameworks that we use to talk about like posters or other like cultural objects. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's not necessarily wrong, because when a record goes out into the marketplace, it does behave like a piece of pop culture, right? Like the Beatles' sales numbers do matter.
Okay.
How the record exists as a piece of pop culture, like an Andy Warhol piece, does matter. That is true. And it's also a live performance.
Yep.
So one of the things that I feel strongly about, or I should say a musical performance, one of the things I feel strongly about in my research is that if we only talk about recordings as cultural objects, you're really limiting your understanding of them and how they work, which I think is a disservice to the field of music, right? Because most music is quote unquote performed through recordings these days. So if we're not talking about recordings as musical performances, then our study of music is missing most of the musical performing that's happening right now. So in my own research, I argue for looking at it both ways. So most of my research is focusing on studying recordings as musical performances and studying how recordings are made as a sort of performance practice.
Okay.
With a nod to all of the awesome cultural theorists who are already talking about recordings the other way. They don't need me to do that again. So I'm trying to fill in this performance practice part of it so that we have a more well-rounded understanding in the field of music and musicology, what's happening in recorded music.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because there's this interesting book I read, and I'm a big fan of it, by a producer called Michael Beinhorn, called
Wicked, yeah.
Unlocking Creativity.
Yeah.
And his focus is kind of like that weird, like recording is more than just capturing the sound waves.
Yes.
There's performance involved. There's feelings involved.
Yep.
There's these weird decisions you make that can't really explain them, but if they feel right, they are right. So you kind of go about it that way.
And the step further that I would go, that I do go in my PhD research right now, is I actually argue that recordings are uniquely positioned to empower oral tradition. And what I mean by that is that so this is a university radio station, and universities as institutions are built to understand knowledge that can be put in what we call object formats, which basically means you can write it down. Knowledge that we
Okay.
can put into some sort of separate object that transcends a human brain. I can go and write knowledge down on a piece of paper or type it down on a hard drive, and that knowledge exists separate from me if I got hit by a car tomorrow. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean? Like
Yeah.
someone else can go and use those objects to access my knowledge. For the design of the university, which is meant to be kind of this immortal thing that transcends individual people, object formats make a lot of sense. That's a great way of storing knowledge so that later generations can access it, right? But the problem is, think of how much knowledge gets lost when you have to write something down. Like, think about one of your last memories and like a vital memory and what that whole experience was like. And now try to write that down for me and tell me that some amount of information gets lost, right? Because object formats are also kind of flattening. That's the limit of the written word. And other cultures, especially indigenous cultures and global south cultures, have other forms of knowledge that get around that problem. You know, when we talk about like indigenous oral tradition, that's a rigorous way of passing knowledge through human brains, through generations, so that you retain all of that information, but don't have the risk of keeping the knowledge in just one person, right?
Okay.
And I promise I'm going somewhere
No,
with this.
I'm fascinated. Continue.
It sounds very esoteric.
No.
What I would love to see happen now that we have this recording technology, the ability to capture sound, I see that as a wonderful opportunity to legitimize oral tradition and other forms of knowledge that traditionally have been left out or even excluded from universities because they defied being written down.
Okay.
Because a record is also an object format. I can give you an MP3 with a recording on it, and that can also be put in a storage room. That can also be put in a library. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it, especially when we are in such an age of colonial and racial reckoning about the harm that white supremacist institutions do and what voices have been left out of contributing to knowledge. I think it's a wonderful time to say we're making all of these advancements in music production. We have all of this technology. This isn't just about recording, you know, dope beats and dope records to understand music more effectively. This is laying a framework within universities so that as academics, we are comfortable accepting knowledge from these other sources. So my hope is that my silly research that's about our album is also contributing steps for other more marginalized voices to say, I can use that technology to access cultural memories and knowledge that otherwise has been disenfranchised.
Okay.
And that's my political bent that's on this research.
Do you think there should be some sort of like dedicated library system involved in collecting?
I don't know that I'm the right person to recommend it. I would just love like to recommend a system. I mean, I don't think that I have enough expertise to advise on that.
Okay.
I would love to see an open-mindedness and a curiosity from universities as institutions to what knowledge they are missing. Because I think right now I am a very white person, like so white, I'm bloody translucent. And as much as I am female, I'm also very masculine presenting. I came from a wealthy family. Like, so I'm kind of as close to a wealthy white man as you can get without being one. And I think that that's a large part of the reason that I was able to access recording technology and producing music and play around with these ideas in a university system because I had the privilege that gives me that access. But at the same time, I'm also female. So I'm sitting around looking from my own axis of oppression and thinking, well, why did I have to fight for this? Why was that so hard? Why were the other people that I was talking to not saying, wow, I wonder what we're missing? You know, why were they so defensive about we have to gatekeep this technology and this knowledge? And like, again, I understand that some of that is universities need to vet. That's part of how the institutions work. They are slow. That's how they are designed. But I think there's a balance you can strike. And my hope is that my research around our album offers something non-threatening that inspires people and says, this can be fun and interesting and just as academically valid. And think of all the good you could do with it to break down barriers.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's not what I would have thought about. Like that just puts different thoughts in my mind about using recordings as a knowledge like a saving knowledge tool, knowledge preservation.
Exactly. Because I mean, I'm huge Jeremy Dutcher stan here personally, especially, I mean, we're out on the East Coast.
I'm actually not familiar with that name.
Oh, okay. Look him up. I won't spoil it all for you. Okay. Jeremy Dutcher is a gorgeous musician who is both Canadian Indigenous and also a classically trained opera vocalist.
Ooh, okay.
And they won the Polaris Prize a few years back for the most stunning classical production album in their native Indigenous language that you have ever heard.
Okay.
And so they use recording technology as a way of encoding and preserving their people's songs that otherwise would have been disenfranchised and would have been lost because they are largely passed on orally, right?
Okay.
And so it's that same sort of spirit also that I'm engaging with recording.
Okay.
And we're just making silly little protest rock records about it.
That's cool. It's so people would hear the music and maybe they hear a song or two and they would have no idea that there's this bigger concept. It's just kind of like a tiny little like a tooth, like up from the surface, but underneath there's this whole canal system going on.
And I can speak for the band on that because that is my own personal bent and day job. I mean, that's why they give me the money for the record. It's because I do the whole research piece with it.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful to the rest of the band for listening to me natter on about that regularly. And, when I come in and say, okay, so our grant for this thing comes from this academic space and I have to do like this paper with it, and everybody's very supportive and cool. So,
well, that's fine. I mean, you should shout out the people that we can shout them out right now, right? This is, let's see, local artist residency. No, I was going to shout out the people who gave you the cash, but
oh yeah,
I have it written down here, but I've lost it.
OGS. We have to thank the Ontario Graduate Scholarship.
Yeah,
Government of Ontario. And
nothing wrong with that.
Well, let me clarify that. Actually, we thank exclusively the people at that grant organizing department in the Government of Ontario, and absolutely nobody else. Doug Ford, if you're listening, we hate you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So let's get back to now that we've had that deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm satisfied. My curiosity has been satisfied.
Thanks for asking.
You're off to Newfoundland. Mm-hmm. So you're tonight here in St. John.
Yes.
But then is it a couple days off?
Yeah. Tuesday we're in St. John's.
St. John's. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't mix it up.
Exactly.
We might get a little spicy over here if you mix it up.
Never. We have straight.
Just the common mistake people make.
Oh, yeah. We had, when we first sent our booking emails over to the venue in St. John's, they were so lovely and responded and said, just to clarify, you know that you're talking about St. John's, Newfoundland, right? And not St. John, New Brunswick. I said, yeah. No, of course we know. We're already booked actually in St. John, New Brunswick, and St. John's, Newfoundland, is next in our tour path.
Yeah.
And the booker came back and said, no, well, I ask because we're not on anyone's tour path. I wanted to make sure you're not confused. And we said, no, you're on our tour path. We're excited. Sweet. We're not going to come out here and not do Newfoundland. Come on.
We're talking about coming out to the East Coast and us appreciating it. They appreciate it even more.
Well, I can't believe the buzz we've got about this gig that's on a Tuesday. Sweet. So we are pumped.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. And what about, has anyone been to Newfoundland before? 5, 7?
Never. Nope. First time.
1, 3. No one's been to Newfoundland.
Nope. Been out all the way to everywhere. Everywhere else, and every other province. Haven't been up north, but
okay.
Yeah, I think this is the first
to the West
time,
Coast, never out east.
This is the first East Coast, I think, for most of us in the band.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you're going to take the ferry and then drive across Newfoundland? Oh, exactly. Man, that'll be a nice scenic journey.
Indeed. Hopefully we'll actually be able to get do the drive during the day this time.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Going to Prince Edward Island last night, we had to take Confederation Bridge in the dark both times.
Look at that view.
So there was a lot of just looking at the unfathomable black outside and going, what a view!
Staring into that abyss.
So are you taking the overnight ferry kind of thing?
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so taking the overnight ferry, and then we do, tomorrow's Sunday? Yeah. So Sunday night, we take the overnight ferry. Monday is our driving day around The Rock, as I've been told it's called.
Yep.
And then Monday night, we arrive in St. John's. Tuesday, we have the whole day to hang around in St. John's, take it in. I think we're also on the radio there.
Cool.
And then we play our show. Wednesday, we drive all the way back around the island. Wednesday night, overnight ferry. And then we crash really hard on Thursday morning, and we play a show in Moncton that night.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a good schedule. You know, some people go to Newfoundland, they never come back because they just love it so much.
That's what we've heard.
You've heard that too, eh? Yeah. Maybe we can, so we got about 5 minutes left.
Sure.
Maybe you can briefly talk about kind of like balancing being a touring band and then like, I don't know if you guys have day jobs or what, but maybe like balancing like regular life with tour life.
It's so lucrative right now.
Too much money, right? That's why you're...
so much, just buckets of cash.
So do you fight with employers or do you like...
We don't sleep enough is the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, school is a big help. So I'm doing my PhD. I'm in grad school. 5 is in law school. 7 is in welding school.
Okay, yeah.
So that gives you the flexible hours.
Adult hot gluing.
Yeah. And just emphasis on the don't sleep. Because
sleep.
you have the flexible hours so that you do your class and you do your coursework and, you know, the van and play your shows. 3 gets the least sleep of all of us. He has a real job and...
Oh, I work at Western University in the IT department. It's
Oh.
glorious.
So you get to like, have you tried turning it on and off again?
I get to set up people's Zoom calls
Ah, okay.
and plug HDMI cables in. It's very fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see that being fun.
Yeah.
But it pays the bills, right?
It does.
So we got IT, we've got music research, we've got welding, we've got law.
Oh yeah.
What kind of law?
Well, I'm in my first year of law school, so no kind of law right now.
No kind of law, okay.
We'll be missing a bit of that for this, but it's more than worth it. Also, shout out to CUPE, the TAs going on strike at my university. So me not showing up in class is actually solidarity.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. The welder likes the union thing, right? I imagine you might be going into a union of sorts when you're done.
So I just realized that it said, if you can read this, you're standing on the couch with a marker and brackets on the ceiling.
Is that? I didn't know that was even up there.
It's like, oh, it's right there.
That's
Before you answer that question, I was about to say,
sorry.
what did you get distracted
That's
by?
hilarious.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
That's hilarious.
What was the question?
It's all those welding vapors, all those...
Yeah, inhaling that. Things get a little bit weird. You start seeing things like writing on the ceiling.
This is a staunchly pro-union, pro-organization band.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very, very
Yeah.
pro-union.
I used to...
My sub department in IT is the only unionized one, and we get
Let's go.
Yep.
Nice.
Pro laborer, pro-union.
indeed we get to set boundaries on our time.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of power, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can use it to come on tour.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
there you
I
are.
can.
You're in St. John.
Yeah, be pro-union, you get more good tours.
More good tours, yeah. Join a union and then join a touring band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well, thanks a lot for coming in, Nameless Friends.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, the listeners that are listening, to be redundant, can catch you tonight at Haven Music Hall,
Yes, please.
7 p.m.,
You got it.
$20 at the door.
We got
Playing-
Lily's Day and He, She, They. It's going to be awesome.
I actually heard he, she, they had to pull out,
So,
replaced by the
yeah.
Saviors.
He, She, They's keyboardist, this is actually not funny, became suddenly quite ill and had to pull out.
Okay.
But He, She, They has, with their remaining members and a few new friends, so I believe we may be witnessing one of St. John's first supergroups that they've put
Oh,
together,
okay.
is going to come on and play, because they can play much of He, She, They's catalog and a whole bunch of wonderful prog jams of their own.
Yes.
And we are christening them the Saviors, short for the Show Saviors.
Got it.
So that's if you're a fan of He, She, They and you bought advance tickets, it is still a good one to go
Okay.
to.
That's
Worthwhile.
perfect. That makes,
Yeah.
that's even more exciting. That's even more of a
Exactly.
reason to go, because this is like a moment in time that may never be repeated.
It is, and I will also tell the listeners at home that because this is going to be a large prog open jam part of their set, you may see members of Nameless Friends and Lily's Day in that jam. as well. So
Okay.
you gotta come to
Gotta
this.
come. And shout out to Lily's Days
Yes.
band logo.
Yeah.
Best logo I've ever seen in my life.
PB&J.
Yeah.
I love it.
PB&J. Yeah.
It's like a spread PB&J sandwich, and like this swishy ooze makes Lily's Day.
It's so
isn't it?
good. Yeah. I just saw it today for the first time. I was like,
that's
blown
pretty
away.
good.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for coming in, Nameless Friends. Everyone, catch them tonight at the Haven Music Hall.
Thanks.
Peace.